Well, as I'll just said to all of you, welcome to your final year of Blue Water Middle College, your first success session. This year, you have a few of these, and I'll talk a little bit about the next one, I think just literally on the next slide, where I go into some announcements. But today, we're going to talk about basically wrapping up your SE4 and Blue Water Middle College goals. So like getting your high school diploma, ideally your college degree, transferable stuff, credits. And then we're going to talk about next step and hopefully get you feeling comfortable to start the college application process and making sure that those are quality applications to get you into wherever you want to go next. Today is predominantly about the college application process. And so I am going to do, actually, I should have just had you check in this way. How many, well, you know what, I won't even do this, but I would ask, or what I would have asked is how many of you are planning to go to a 4-year school after Blue Water Middle College, and how many are thinking a trade school? And if you want to share that in the chat, you're free to, but you don't have to. But the bulk of today is about kind of applying to a 4-year school to transfer on after Blue Water Middle College. I know there's a number of people that are not planning to do that, that are either going to go into the military or have gotten an associate degree where they can start into the workforce. Like if you've gone into welding or criminal justice or something like that, oftentimes the associate degree is enough to get you a really good job in the field. So if you are in that, I apologize that all of this is kind of talking about these things that you might not be doing, but it is worthwhile just to kind of hear it and take it in, because you never know if you might come back to that. And oftentimes we have people think one thing at the beginning of their 13th year and totally change their mind, and by spring are like, you know what, I am going to apply and maybe go on to a 4-year school. So it is good to take this stuff in. Just for the present, we're now done with week 3. We're into week 4 of the semester. It's going very fast for me. I don't know about you guys. It seemed like it was going fast for the people that were in person last Friday. And I think the consensus was from those groups was that every semester seems to go faster for you guys. Early alert grades are going to be available on September 30th. As always, that's just kind of a progress report grade that your instructors post after 6 weeks are done. That's meant to kind of help you figure out where you stand. That is not your final grade. And if it's good or it's bad, there's still 10 more weeks after that to impact that, hopefully for the better. Registration for winter semester opens November 4th. And then stuff is usually viewable a week prior. We'll be sending email reminders about that. And I'll probably be reminding you about a lot of stuff over the course of this year. There's some things that I'll talk about today. So just keep an eye on your emails always. And then our next success session, I'll have the actual times for this, but if you want to just kind of put it in your calendar, and I'll send this in the follow-up as well. Our next one is about paying for college, the whole applicate or financial aid process and how to navigate all of that. And it's given, presented actually by the director of the SE4 Financial Aid Office, Joe Kassar. She's awesome, very, very informative, very knowledgeable on the topic. She's actually kind of a leading expert in the field of financial aid across the state of Michigan and a little bit nationally. So she is awesome. That session is really, really helpful. I always say that I learned a lot about my own student debt when I first started at the Blue Water Middle College 10 years ago and heard that presentation. And actually, a lot of the things I'll point out kind of after she's done when we have that session is that she's helping you, trying to tell you about the mistakes that you should avoid making. And I basically made all of those mistakes. So we'll talk a little bit more about the financial aid piece and paying for college at the next session. Today is just kind of learning how to apply. Your parents are welcome and invited to attend that session. And I actually really would encourage it, especially if you have a parent that has never gone through this process and is nervous about it. I've talked to some students who are, their parents are not only nervous about it, they're actually like kind of angry, like preemptively angry, understandably, because college is outrageously expensive. And right now, this year can kind of become stressful because of all of that. Just aside from the notion that you are maybe going on to the next step and leaving home, and that's stressful for your families. But then the idea of actually coming up with the money to pay that bill is really hard. So we'll talk a little bit about that today, but mostly all of that, the financial stuff will be at our next session in November. Left turning basically back to high school stuff. So if you marched in your high school graduation last spring, that was just kind of for the ceremony of it. You didn't actually get your high school diploma from your home high school. You would be getting that from Blue Water Middle College at the end of this year in May. So there is one final requirement. Basically, you probably finished all of your 4 English, 4 math, your social studies, science, all that stuff. But there is one final requirement that all students in the state have to complete, and it's to complete a math-related course in your final year of high school. So for every middle college student across the state, anybody that has a 13th year, this is your actual final year. So this is in addition to the 4 credits that you've already completed. If you recall, we've been talking about this since you started. I think I mentioned it right away at that first success session when we talk about registration, or we talked about it even in seminar. But it's in addition to the 4 credits. So sometimes people are like, what, I have to take an extra credit? Yes, we kind of warned you that if ideally you do your 4 credits at the high school and you finish that last year, and then you're finishing up your degree requirement for math this year at SE4. So you're taking your SE4 math class, that counts. It does only count if you take it this year in the fall or winter semester. Taking a summer class wouldn't work, and taking something last year wouldn't work. If you have already finished your math requirement for your degree, there's a ton of other classes you can take at SE4 that count as a math-related requirement. Things like accounting, economics, a bunch of science classes, astronomy, physics, chemistry. There's a whole list of things that can count for that. There's a lot of like welding, or not welding. Well, I think there's a couple welding, but some of the electronic technology or engineering technology classes have those require or count as math related. So if you have a question about that, just let me know. But most people are probably just finishing their math for their degree. This is a big year credit-wise, as far as progress towards your associate degree, but also completing the high school diploma. You are basically doubling the number of credit, because your first 2 years, you were just here part-time at the college, and now you're full-time, right? So you're basically taking the same number of credits this year as you have over the last 2 years. And so that's a good thing, in that you're getting all this new credit this year. That also means that you can impact your GPA pretty heavily with the stuff that you're doing this year. And then you're completing your high school diploma, ideally your associate degree, and then we're talking about transferring on to your next step. So it is time to kind of kick it in. This isn't like senioritis part 2. You really have to make sure you're pushing hard to do well to finish everything up this year. At this point, usually our students, at least 80% are on track to earn the associate degree at the end of this year. So that's like what we consider to be on time, is to finish your associate degree with your winter classes and do the commencement in May. At the time of graduation in May, usually it ends up to be less than half that ultimately end up earning their degree. And then people do sometimes end up only a class or 2 away. So another little chunk of people end up getting a degree within a couple of years after graduation, either by getting a bachelor's degree or finishing up their associate degree. But we want to point out what are some reasons people don't earn their degree on time so that you can hopefully avoid this. Some change their program. And I've had students already kind of reaching out of thinking that they want to change their degree. Hopefully you're changing to something that you can still finish on time, but sometimes people get down a specific path like business or criminal justice. And so you've taken all these classes that are just really only going to work for that degree, and decide to change to something more general or even something totally different, but still specific. And then they kind of freak out of like, well, I'm not going to finish my degree. This was all for nothing. Definitely that is not true. You've gotten to figure that out for free and still gotten a lot of college credit in the meantime. So if that happens, or if you're in this boat, don't let that discourage you from, you say you have this semester, next semester to earn more credit. All of this is credit that you can move on and take with you to the next place. Even if you've changed your mind and gone into something different than where you started, your classes will still transfer, just maybe not towards, they won't work towards requirements for your bachelor's degree, but they'll count for electives. And so those are still useful things. Some people were never planning to get an associate degree. They were just focusing on classes that will transfer to their four-year school for what they want to go into. I can make the case where I've met with very, very few students over the course of my 10 years here that have worked towards requirements towards their bachelor's degree that haven't also completed associate degree requirements. So if you were doing that and are kind of like, you know what, maybe I should get an associate degree, come and see me. Basically, most of the stuff I talk about today is going to say, come and see me. Let's set up a meeting. And I would encourage pretty much everybody to do that over the next couple of months. But oftentimes people don't finish their degree because they end up failing or withdrawing classes. And even if you haven't prior, well, basically, if you have withdrawn from a class prior, people are more likely to do it again. But a lot of times people do that for the first time this year, and it's not uncommon. It's just that you are taking more challenging classes this year. You're kind of upping the ante and taking those harder classes, math, science, English, things that you were kind of holding off on. So it's not the end of the world, but this is where it really takes digging in, working hard, and then come and talk to us if you're struggling, both on the side that we can help you try to get the class back on track and salvage a good grade, whether that's a passing grade, D- or higher, or ideally we can even get you up to a C still at this point. But on the other side of it to look at, okay, so I need this Bio 271 for a nursing prerequisite, now what? And so we can look at what should we prioritize? Like, should you retake that class right now if it didn't go well? Or should you just kind of keep moving and we'll figure about retaking it later? But yeah, it can lead to delays in your degree. You don't have to pay for withdrawing a class, but if you withdraw from something and you don't have room in your schedule for us to, like, we can pay for up to 17 credits. If you needed all of that and there's not room to retake a class, then you could ultimately end up having to pay for a class like after you're done with Blue Water Middle College if you are still behind. But that's again where we can talk about, let's figure out what to prioritize for winter semester so that maybe you don't have to do that. And all this stuff we've talked about a million times. Pretty much every time we see you, we talk about withdrawing. That if you are contemplating it even a little bit, if you're in the first weeks and you're like, this is hard, it's not going well, reach out to one of us and we can help you hopefully get through it, or just kind of walk you through the steps we would want you to take, like meeting with one of us, talking to your instructor, trying tutoring. Those are things that we would recommend to anybody that is struggling, but we definitely want to see you try before we would just let you withdraw. And the withdraw deadline is not until, it's actually the week of Thanksgiving. And so we're wanting you to let us know the week before, so that we can help you figure that out. So that's a long, long way away. Like, you have a lot of time to bring your grade up if it's not going well. As far as achieving your associate degree, every summer I take quite a bit of time to review everybody's progress, or everyone going into their final year, so that's you, to find out where your progress is for your associate degree. And then I basically send everyone a letter saying what you have left. And hopefully everybody saw that and made any adjustments that they needed to. But if you are not sure about that, or you didn't receive that letter, let me know. I also, in this time, as I'm doing those, come across quite a few people that you're almost done with your requirements for your associate degree, especially if you're doing an arts or science. You might only have a handful of things left. And so you're really coming into a time where you have a lot of room for electives in your 13th year usually. And so that may be where you're like, okay, so then what? Like, what else am I going to take to kind of round out the 60 or 62 credits or whatever you need for your associate degree? That's where you come and talk to me, and we can talk about whatever your next step is and figure out what other classes can you take with your space for electives that will actually transfer and count towards your bachelor's degree. And then I can also help you, as I've always said, we help you make your plan. We teach you how to make your plan. We can help you make your plan. We'll double check it with SC4 advisors at some point this year. And then we can triple check it with the advisors at the colleges you're thinking about transferring to, so that you really can know that everything you're taking is going to transfer for what you want it to. But the moral of the story is really, really push to complete your degree on time at the end of this year. If you're a class or two away, you can finish that up with a summer class. If you're a couple classes or more away, we can talk about something called reverse transfer. Basically, it's that you can transfer on to your next step. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay another year or another semester at SC4. We can prioritize what to take for winter to kind of check off requirements. And if you're just short on a few elective credits, you can transfer on, take whatever you're going to take when you go to the 4-year school. You can always transfer that stuff back to SC4 to finish your associate degree. And that may sound crazy, because I know I was just like you're maybe thinking at this point. When I went to SC4 for a year after high school, I was never planning to get an associate degree. I was taking stuff that I knew was going to transfer to Michigan State, because I was positive I was going to get a bachelor's degree. And I did, but I had a roommate that broke her leg, that she got severely delayed. She ended up having, it was a very chaotic, awful situation. She got in a bike accident and ended up having to withdraw from her classes because she couldn't get places. She had just all these complications that affected her financial aid. She had like all of these things come up, and then ended up being delayed a couple of semesters where she wasn't able to take classes until she could pay back this financial aid stuff. So that is like a horror story that doesn't normally happen to people, but she never thought it would happen to her too, right? So you never know what can happen. Having an associate degree on your resume and done is a good thing, whether it's just something for you to have while you're finishing up your bachelor's degree, or just having kind of on your resume in addition to the bachelor's degree that you're ultimately going to get. Okay, so to get to the bachelor's degree, the college application process, I think probably you guys came in after our previous director, Mr. Spencer, had already retired. We've all kept some things in presentations. This was an old comic that he had in an old presentation. And I used to joke this maze was that the college application process is still unnecessarily complicated. But I've started to change my mind about that. And it's complicated because there are so many options. And so usually the confusion is just, okay, what do I do? I would just like a cut, dry, clear checklist of what I need to do to get into a college. And it's just not that simple, because there are so many options. There's so many places you can go, so many paths you can take, so many different combinations of classes that you can transfer. And so that's the beauty of it, is that there's a lot of ways to get to where you want to go. But then that's what makes it confusing, right? So I have tried to boil down the process as simply as possible to basically a timeline, right? So right now, your main thing is to identify colleges or universities you want to apply to, where you think you could see yourself transferring to, and kind of getting ready to apply, maybe even getting that application done, started somewhere in the process by the end of this month, by the end of September. And if you apply in October, you are ahead of the curve. You are applying on the early end of things. We'll talk about kind of deadlines in a second. So basically, from now until the end of October, getting the applications ready. The whole FAFSA thing doesn't even open until December 1st. So you're going to be doing that piece of thing in December, January. So that's another good reason to get the college application stuff done now. And then you can apply for scholarships year round. I'll point out some sort of national scholarship databases that you can be doing right now, every day, checking stuff weekly. And then there's local scholarships that open up in January, usually right around the first of the year, that are usually due by March. And so this is the aggressive timeline. This would be applying for things to hit early deadlines. I'm going to send you this checklist, which is a slightly updated version of what I gave you all last spring. I either emailed this, well, I emailed it to everybody, but if you were in person, I gave you a printout of this. But this is a more detailed timeline and checklist, really walking you through all of the steps, and we're going to talk through all of this. But this talks through kind of those same deadlines and what to think about as you're at each step. What I wanted to point out is that if you can apply for the college that you want to go to, like get all your college applications in and submit the FAFSA by March 1st, that's the priority deadline for most colleges and scholarships. So if you're applying by March 1st, that's kind of the first big deadline. But there are people that decide in the summer, like you might decide next summer, and there's schools that have rolling admissions that you can apply. So again, this is the aggressive deadline, but there definitely are, you can extend this process if you want. It's just only going to probably make it more stressful though, right? So that just depends on how much time you have to give it right now and how much you know about where you want to go. So this is another piece where these questions are things that you should be thinking about if you haven't already. It's just identifying the colleges that you think you want to apply to. So does it achieve your goals? Now, there are students that I've met with that want to go into, I mean, one of the examples was forensic science. I want to be a forensic scientist. There are schools, but only a couple that have an actual forensic science degree. But in doing a little bit of research in that field, it kind of comes around that really you could major in chemistry or biochemistry or definitely a more general science, and you can add on forensic stuff later on. So you can major in chemistry or biology pretty much anywhere. Every college pretty much has those. So that's the kind of stuff, like if you have your heart set on somewhere and it doesn't have the program that you want to pursue, let's investigate, does it have something close that can get you to where you want to get to? But sometimes it might just be, like I have a student that wanted to, I had a student, she's gone already, wanted to become a pilot. She went to Western and she's working towards that aviation degree over there. So there's really not that many places you can go for that if you want to have a bachelor's degree in that, in Michigan. So the other thing to look at is, do they meet your other criteria? Do you want to be at a big school, small school, public, private? Public is cheaper, private is expensive. But on the private end, they do offer a lot of scholarships, and their goal is to try to get it your cost as close to the public's as possible. And a lot of them do get pretty close. Do you want to be far away? Like, do you want to be able to just kind of go out in the world? Do you want to be outside of Michigan? Leaving Michigan, again, is going to make it more expensive. The costs, those are things that you can start Googling right now. Like if you have your 5 places you're thinking about, you can Google MSU cost and it'll tell you kind of the yearly costs, and you can kind of start comparing those things. Again, financial aid stuff could affect that, because the more expensive schools might be able to offer you more financial aid that could put that cost closer to a cheaper, smaller school. Including at least one financially safer school, a college that you're likely to be accepted to and able to afford, would be kind of leaning towards those public schools like Central, Western, Oakland, places like that. We'll look at how things will transfer. At this point, you've kind of already done the classes, you've done the work. Hopefully you've done that research on the front end. What will transfer is already kind of happened, right? You've already taken the classes. But that's where we can look at this next semester with winter semester, making sure you're looking into that. The other thing is, do you fit their criteria? So this, I hope you can see this okay on your screen. This is just something that an organization in Michigan has put together with just kind of average GPAs and average SAT scores and sort of putting them in these tiers. I show this not to discourage anybody, but just so that you can start getting a realistic idea of where you fall. So if you are sitting with 3.6, let's say, and Michigan is your dream, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply. But if you have, let's say, a 1200 SAT score, something you could do is retake the SAT and try to get closer to that 1350, right? Or if you're anywhere on this framework and you're below where you are hoping to apply, that doesn't mean don't apply. These averages mean that there are people with lower GPAs and lower SAT scores that get in, but you might just need to tell a stronger story with your essays and with your extracurriculars and all of that stuff. So just something to keep in mind as you're looking. There's also this thing called the Michigan Assured Admission Pact, where these 10 schools have agreed that any student that applies and has a high school GPA of 3.0 or above will be automatically accepted. So you still have to do the application, you still have to go through the application process, but you can kind of rest easy if you have a 3.0 or higher, knowing that you will definitely get in. So these are great ones to have as your safe schools if you have that 3.0 or above. If you do not have a 3.0 or above, doesn't mean these aren't on the table still, but they're just guaranteeing admission for students with those GPAs. So that's a good benchmark grade point average to shoot for getting to at the end of this year. Lost my train of thought. So there are these schools too, like if we look back here, they do take people with lower GPAs as well. On that, let's see, there is this site. I'm gonna kind of click out of here and go over here. So this is the Michigan Assured Admission Pact page. I'll send you this. This is nice because you can kind of like click on the school and it takes you to their page about that, kind of talks you through how it works. Again, they're still gonna push you to apply. You still have to apply in order to be eligible for that. The other thing I wanted to point out and that I will send is this institution update. So this has not been updated for this year, but I would guess these will be updated soon. But you can click on a school and it kind of tells you what you need to know about the application and admission process, has links to their application, links to financial aid, scholarship information, links you to the tour. It has the information for the admissions, financial aid office, whatever offices you need to contact. This here tells you Eastern is test optional if you have a GPA higher than 2.5. If you're below that, then they're going to want your SAT score. They say no essay required too, right? So those are things that are helpful to know as you're kind of gathering your information. This is a nice shortcut place. I'll also kind of point out the admissions page for one of the schools and just kind of show what sort of information is there. But that's what I would kind of recommend Googling where you think you want to go. So CMU admissions. Oh, darn it. I always forget. Why do I always use this for an example and forget that CMU wants to take you to Carnegie Mellon? CMISH would be for Central Michigan. So you can Google. It takes you to the admission page, and that's where they're going to tell you the current stuff for this year. I'll come back to this in a second, but I'll send you that link. If you are unsure about where you want to go, these are all great sites that can help you figure that out. This Pathfinder thing is really helpful. It's actually, it's a presentation, but it's this PDF that kind of walks you through questions to ask yourself, how to figure out the process of applying for colleges, and then how to, like, what you should be looking at to find out where you want to apply and then how to apply. So this is a really cool thing that can help you if you are totally at a point where you're like, I have no idea. I just know that I'm going on somewhere next year. I don't know where. I'm freaked out. This kind of helps you walk through that process. So those are all great though. I would say these top two, Pathfinder and Big Future, are really, really helpful. Common App also can help you with that too, and I'll point to some of that in a second. The other thing is that you want to start figuring out the deadlines. So a lot of you may have heard about early admissions, or sorry, early decision or early action. Especially if you had any friends that were applying to like highly selective or Ivy League schools, they might have been talking about this stuff. Those are usually that date of November 1st. And I think Michigan has this, where they have an early action deadline. Okay, so that's usually November 1st at these schools. And that's just basically saying if you apply by then, you're going to get your answer a little bit sooner. Early decision, there's very few schools in Michigan. I don't think really any of them have an early decision deadline or an early decision plan. But that would be that if you applied as an early decision applicant, if you get in, you have to go there. So you can't apply to everywhere that way, because then you'd be in a pickle and be accepted at multiple places that are going to expect you to come there. I'm not sure what the ramifications are if you decide not to go to a school that you've applied to early decision, but it's not really necessary to do. Early action applicants, there is some evidence that people that apply earlier are more likely to get in. Probably that's not necessarily correlation much as it is like, or it's probably more correlation than causation, right? So it doesn't mean you're more of a appealing applicant to them. It's that you've already done the work, you have a high GPA, right? So it's not necessary to apply by November 1st, but there's good reasons for it that I'll get into in a second, if only just to kind of get it done and over with. But usually regular decision applications, the first deadline is typically March 1st. And again, I kind of touched on that's the priority for basically the highest level of scholarship financial aid money. Because they want your application by then and they want your FAFSA by then, so that they can start creating your financial aid package. They have to do that for every single student that applies, right? So that's why they want that early. But most schools are just the order people apply are the order that they review them and give decisions. So the earlier and quicker you do that, the better. But that would be where, if you're looking at an admissions page, it's going to kind of tell you those things. I think the next one talks about, I don't know, it's a little bit up. I'm going to talk about when you are applying, you're applying as a freshman, not a transfer, and Blue Water Middle College is your high school. So not Port Huron Northern. I always say that first because every year there's a Port Huron Northern student that does it. I say it as a fellow alumni. I probably would have done the same thing, not realizing the difference when I was your age. But basically, all of you have been at your home high school as a guest, technically, for the last 2 years. Blue Water Middle College is your official high school. We are the school that will be awarding your diploma. So we are the ones that will award your final transcript that shows a graduation date. You will never receive a transcript from your home high school with a graduation date on it because you have not graduated from there. So that is why colleges in Michigan are very aware of how middle colleges work, and they have gone through this for years, and they are the ones that have told us this. So they want you to apply as a freshman because you're eligible for freshman scholarships that way. There's a bigger pool of money for freshman scholarships than there are for transfer scholarships. An example, I worked with a student, I don't remember what his GPA was, let's say it was a 3.3. When he was applying to Oakland, like we looked at the scholarships at Oakland, applying as a freshman, that GPA made him eligible for like $2,000 or something like that. If he was to apply as a transfer, that same GPA or his college GPA, that's what they'd be looking at for that, was going to make him eligible for $1,500. So it was that clear cut that there's just better scholarships available to freshmen. Colleges consider you to be a freshman as long as you have not taken a college class after high school graduation, which you have not. You do not have your diploma yet. You have not officially graduated till the end of this year. They also consider next summer to be part of this school year. So even if you only have one or two classes left to take to finish your degree and you're reluctant or not sure about that, you can still take them next summer, and that keeps you a freshman in the eyes of the admission process. I point that out because when you're on these admissions pages, that's the first thing they're going to ask you. Are you freshman or transfer, international, all this? So you would click this. I think I clicked right past it where they said, if you have completed some college level courses like dual enrollment, early middle college, which you are, AP credits, which a lot of people have done, you are still considered a freshman student. Okay, so this page would then have all kinds of information about event days where you can go to take a tour or do a virtual tour, visit campus, set those things up. just kind of basic stats. You would think they'd have good information here about the application process. That's probably more in how to apply. So here's where you finally find the deadline. So their priority deadline is December 1st. So that's earlier than the March 1st, actually, but basically they just want you to apply by December 1st. You still obviously can't do the FAFSA until then. So that's still March 1st is the deadline usually for that. But that's where you want to read through all of these things. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I breezed past a couple slides. So getting those deadlines in order, figuring out how you're going to apply. So you can see here, they have an application right here on this page. So if you click apply to CMU, then they're going to say, are you a freshman or are you a transfer? Or they're laying that out. When you click apply now, you can create an account and you're going to have to obviously like enter your information. For these, where you apply right on the college website, that's just the CMU application, right? So you're setting up an account, you're going to create a username and a password, which is usually your email and a password. You want to write all that stuff down or save it because you can work on an application and you can save your work, exit out and come back to stuff. Common App also works that way. And you can see where you could save this and come back and log in. That's where you would enter your email address and the password you made up, right? So every website, every college has a spot where you can actually apply on their website. I think there's a few like Michigan that don't even let you apply on their website. It just takes you right to Common App. And we'll look at that in just a second. So they all kind of walk you through the process. Application fees. So we saw right here, Central listed what it was. I forget. It was on that other page where I think it said like $40 application fee. So most schools do have an application fee, but there are some fee waivers available. So if you were ever eligible for free and reduced lunch, or there's a handful of other financial qualifiers that if money is an issue for your application fees, talk to me or Mr. Ruiz and we can help figure out, can we get you fee waivers? There are also a number of schools that offer application fee waivers just for the month of Michigan, for the month of October, because in October, that is Michigan College Month. But basically you're gonna start applying, start these applications, decide whether you're gonna do it online or Common App, do the recommendation letters, essays. We're gonna come back to that. The fee waivers. Okay, so this is a list that we have from last year where the Michigan College Access Network kind of gathered up all the application fees and figured out the fee waivers for the schools that do. So this is from last year. They have not created the 2024 list. I would guess they'll do it by October 1st, since that's when all this starts. And as soon as we get that, I'll be sending that on. But these probably don't change. These are colleges that never have an application fee. So these are good ones to, if you're on the fence and thinking about applying to one of these up top, those might be good ones to do. Down below, you can see specific schools that have a waiver for the month of October, like Eastern, and then they have this code that you put in. Most of them are for the full month of October. My alma mater, Michigan State, is disappointing that they only do it for the first 3 weeks. I don't know why. But the year previous in 2022, they only did it the first week. So they're getting better year by year. Maybe this year they'll waive that for the whole month. But that's why we ask you, or kind of recommend that if you got everything ready by the end of this month and just have all your applications done, ready to send, your essays are written, they're uploaded, everything is ready to go. On October 1st, you can come get these waiver codes, enter them in, and bam, send it right away for free, saving yourself a few bucks depending on the schools you're applying to. I'll send you this list, but again, I'll send the updated one as soon as we get it. But this can kind of give you an idea of what, if it's worth waiting. Not every school requires an essay If you are applying through Common App, there is a required essay, and I'll point that out in a second. They give you like 7 options to respond to. Whether the essay is required or not, it might be worth doing, especially again, if you're kind of on the bubble where your metrics, like your GPA and your SAT score, are a little bit below those averages. It would be worth writing an essay and telling your story. If you've had anything unique happen to you, that's definitely where to talk about it. Mentioning your middle college experience is a decent thing if you don't have anything else to talk about. Talking about the fact that you took on college early is a good thing. There are still some applications that will ask if you had something unique to say, or if you had a unique situation during COVID. Talking about that you didn't like online learning is probably not unique. Most people did not. But if, you had something happen during COVID, if you lost a family member, if a family member lost a job, if life is still being affected by COVID, then that's something to talk about. But I've been to a few college workshops where admissions people have said, you want to talk about what makes you unique. And one person put it my favorite way that was like, think about that thing that makes you weird. Like your friends make fun of you for this, or your family kind of teases you about this, that quality that makes you weird, right? That thing you've always kind of been maybe self-conscious about. Those are the things to talk about. That's what brings your unique personality to that campus. And they do want unique personalities on their campus. They don't want all rich people, right? Or all of one type of person. They want a campus that reflects the world. So that's where talking about your personal experience is really helpful. Michigan, they talked about how many essays they get talking about, I want to come to Michigan because I came to a game at the big house and it was so exciting and it made me want to go there. And they're like, yeah, duh, everybody feels that way, right? What's unique about that? Now, if you want to say your grandpa used to bring you there to games and you always wanted to be just like him, he's an engineer, you want to go into engineering, you have a passion for it because of that, sure, but that's talking more about your relationship and your interest in that field, right? But that could be where that started. So again, you want to just push a little bit further. Try not to say the stuff that everyone's going to say. And you want to get those proofread. So you're going to write them, have your family proofread it. Any of us in the office can proofread it, and just checking for things like spelling and grammar and stuff like that. But also if it's something about the topic, sometimes I've read an essay where people might be blaming other people if things haven't gone well, or not really digging into a topic. That would be something that we'd maybe help encourage you one way or the other, but trying to keep things pretty positive is usually a good rule for those. Your English teacher at the college or your high school, I know that they're all willing to read essays and help with those. So definitely get multiple people's eyes on it to make sure that it's really great. So again, you're applying as a freshman and Blue Water Middle College is your high school. This is going to be the first year where no one makes the mistake of applying otherwise. And then I actually had to look at an MSU application, but I just kind of wanted to point out, so it is as simple, like sometimes people are like, I don't know how to get to the application. So if I just Google something as simple as MSU, the first thing that pops up is Michigan State. I also know it's msu.edu. Bam, there is a button here that says apply. It's going to bring you to the same place. It brings you to the admissions page. Every college has it set up different, but that should be a place where you can get to. So you would click first year applicant, learn more. I'm going to college for the first time is not true or accurate, but it's the closest to your situation. And right when you click on it, you see this includes early middle college students. So here you would learn how to apply. When you're ready, you would click apply now. Sorry, my internet is slowing down. I probably have too many things open. And right off the bat, you can see you can apply through MSU and just start your own MSU application, or you can apply through Common App. So that brings me to that. If you are applying to at least one or at least two schools that are on Common App, it is worth doing Common App. Just it will save you that time. Your application is basically just filling out a form online. So if you can do Common App, you really are only just doing that once. There are things that each school will ask you on top of the general Common App application, but it minimizes the time that you would spend on it. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Well, actually, it's right here. So Common App means common application. You can see what colleges are on here. Or let's see, I thought there was a page that just has them all. I guess basically you can look them up. Oh, okay. So you can. Sorry, this was probably too general of a search, it's taking forever, but you can see 214 schools, 45 when you get down to Michigan. So you can actually search at which schools in Michigan take the Common App. So you can search that way, or you could just enter Michigan. That would probably make more sense. So yeah, you can search there. You can start on the website to kind of see. I think that brought us right there. I am pretty sure Central is on there too. Yeah, you can also apply using Common App. So usually we'll say that on the application or admissions page here. So those are some examples. So the overall Common App is very similar to the other one where you're just going to click create an account and you're going to start entering your information. That link I will send you. What's really helpful is they have this page that walks you through the whole process. So what it is, and there's all these videos, and it walks you through each step, what to gather, what kind of information you're going to need. They have, I think, about the essays, the writing supplement, submission, how to get letters of recommendation, how to upload those, the whole start to finish the process. There's also tons of videos embedded here that walk you through things. And then there's a video that walks you through the whole thing here. There's also, they have a YouTube page where there's all kinds of topics. So these are great for fill out your Common App with me. It's a 2-hour thing where you're literally, you could have this on and be doing the thing as you go. They talk about different pieces of the application, breaking down the essay prompts, advice for essays. There's all kinds of information on these videos. So I'll send you this link. I really, really recommend this, even if you're not going to do Common App, talking about recommenders and essay personal advice or advice for personal essays. These are helpful things even if you're not going to use Common App. There's also, I think they have playlists that are about certain topics too. That's probably less helpful than just kind of going through the videos. So I will send you all of that. I think I list it here. Or it might not be. So when they ask you for, I think it's on the sheet that I send you, but when you're doing Common App, it wants you to enter your high school counselor. That would be me. So again, Blue Under Middle College is your high school, and you're going to put my information for the counselor there. Some schools will require you to have a counselor recommendation. And so if you're applying to a school like that and you put my name in, it'll just automatically send me an invitation. And if I see that a recommendation is required, then I'll reach out to you and say, hey, do you want me to write that letter? I have a questionnaire that I'll send you. And if anybody wants me to write a letter, I have this questionnaire where you can fill it all out. Tell me what kind of stuff you've done, like extracurriculars, all of that stuff, what your plans are, and then I'll incorporate all that in the letter. So You can reach out to me now and ask for that, or maybe I'll just include that in the email follow-up that I send to everybody. But basically, when you enter that on Common App, that's when I go in and basically attach our school report, confirm all the stuff that you've said. I upload your transcript, and sometimes that's all you need, and you don't have to send additional transcripts. But if you are applying, some schools do have you send it separately. And if you are applying on like MSU's website or Central's website, they will say, okay, you're going to have to request your high school transcript and have it sent to us. So that is the next step, how to do that. So once again, BWMC, Blue Water Middle College, is your high school. So when they ask for your high school transcript, you need to send the Blue Water Middle College transcript, and we send those in parchment. You can request your your transcript to be sent to yourself in parchment, and that is how you find out what your high school GPA is. You were emailed an invitation to set up your parchment account last Thursday. I think I set those up. So you should have gotten an email that looked something like this, and there was a button to click that then it pops up your account, you finish setting it up. So you may have already done that, but if you have not, that's in your email. If you have not received that or you can't find it, you can just search parchment in your email and it'll pop up. It's being sent also to your SE4 email. So a lot of times it was pushing it to the other tab, like it kind of thinks that it's spam. So you may want to look in your other tab on your email or spam, and it could be there, or if when you search it, it should pop up anyway. So let me know if you have not received that, if you have any questions about it. Once you set up your account, there's the home dashboard page has a big button at the top that says order. That's how you order your transcript. So you click order. It's going to ask you, what do you want to order? And you would select transcript. It's going to ask you, where do you want to send it to? You start typing in Western Michigan. That will pop up. You select it, you follow the prompts, and that's how you order it. It's pretty easy, but if you get stuck, you can pop in and I can help you with that in like 5 seconds. So request a copy of your transcript for yourself so you can see your GPA. And then again, make sure you're keeping your GPA strong. Your high school GPA from Blue Water Middle College does have both your high school grades on it as well as your college grades. All of that is your high school experience. So that is an accurate reflection of the work that you have done in high school. This is, I think, one of the things that prompts people to try to get around not sending it through Blue Water Middle College parchment, I think, is that sometimes your GPA is better when you're just looking at your northern grades, right? Because your college maybe didn't go as hot as the northern stuff did. Or our transcript is not a weighted GPA, but just trust that that stuff does get found out and it does not reflect on you. Sometimes it can be just a very simple thing for them to fix. Sometimes it's a kind of a huge paperwork issue that the admissions office might be upset about, or just it creates kind of some extra work for people. So the best thing to do is keep the admissions people happy and just do it the way that you're supposed to. So that's the parchment email there. When they ask for your college transcript, you send that separately. That's also online. You would go to se4.edu/transcript and show you that. This is a different online situation. Tried to clear it. It does cost $5.65 per transcript. So I would wait until they actually ask you for that, but you would just enter your information there and follow the prompts. Click order transcript at the bottom. Sorry, a dog has just entered the house quite loudly. It's very excited. So that's how you order that. Not every school might ask for your college transcript in the application process, but probably they will. They'll ask when you're doing your application, have you taken any college classes? You'll say, yes, I have. They'll ask which college, and you add SE4, St. Clair County Community College there. Sometimes they'll be like, okay, cool, what'd you take? And you might enter it right there on the application. Or most likely they'll say, great, send us your college transcript as well. But if they don't ask you for it, you can wait. On that note, that brings us to the next thing. So you will need final transcripts next spring. We'll remind you about that throughout the winter. But your final transcript for both your high school and your college, your high school final transcript, you'll send after the school year is over in May. And that is to prove that you actually graduated from high school, right? Because this is more before the internet and it was easy to catch these things. But people used to get senioritis and just bomb their second semester after they got accepted to their dream school and then not end up graduating. So that's number one, why they want your final high school transcript is to make sure that you actually graduated. And then they need your final SE4 college transcript in May so that they can do your final credit transfer. So again, we'll remind you about that as it gets closer. You're sending these right now in the application process so they can see what you've done and as far as if they want to accept you or not. The final stuff you'll only send to the school that you decide to go to. On that, once you get all your application stuff in and all this stuff is sent, you may get communication from admissions reps. They may call, email, sometimes they'll text you, and they might ask you a question. So let's say, for example, you don't send your SE4 transcript. Maybe you just missed where they asked you for it, or you don't think they did ask you for it. And then after the fact, the admissions person is going to be like, hey, so it said you went to college at St. Clair County Community College, but we haven't received that one. Can you send us that transcript? And sometimes people are like, oh my God, it's the admissions people, and freak out and get scared. That is not the case. Like, they are actually nice people that want you to get in. Admissions reps have a certain territory and they want their kids, their students from their area to get in. So they're actually your biggest advocate in the application process. So just answer them, be polite, be prompt, make sure you're checking your email. Use whatever formality they use. If they're just like, hey, what's up? We need your college application or your college transcript. You can say, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm sending it now. But they're not going to just throw your application out if there's something you're missing or if there's something they don't understand. They're going to ask you the questions. But if you don't answer, they're going to consider your application incomplete if there's something that they're asking you for and you haven't gotten back to them on that. Okay, so all of that is probably the application process, hopefully you'll have wrapped up by the end of October. The financial aid process basically picks up in December. So the FAFSA will be open December 1st. If you heard crazy stuff about the FAFSA last year, it is true. It was a complicated mess. There were a lot of technical glitches. The process was made simpler, even though it didn't quite work. The actual form is a lot easier to fill out. People that didn't have tech glitches, it was really, really quick to do the actual application. But most of the nightmare situations that you heard about were just these glitches that they have fixed. They fixed it last year, but everything got to the colleges really late. So hopefully that is not going to happen. I'm hopeful. The financial aid office is hopeful. But if you need help, we're here for that. SE4 financial aid office is here for that. And then the success session is really going to be helpful just as far as like finding out how the whole thing works. So I'll have the schedule for this attached to this email follow-up I send you. But really, really like request this off, make plans to attend one of these either in person or online. And your parents, like, ask them to come with you, recommend that they come with you. A lot of times people have come to the in-person one and their parent was on the Zoom or vice versa, and that's totally fine. You don't have to come together if that doesn't work with your schedule, but they are welcome and encouraged to come. And again, especially if your parents are reluctant about this whole financial aid thing. A lot of times we hear students have come to me and said, my mom isn't going to fill out the FAFSA. She doesn't want me taking out student loans. That's fine. You do not have to take student loans out. Completing the FAFSA does not put you on the hook for taking out student loans. You still do not have to, but you are not eligible for the free money if you don't complete the FAFSA. So that's why it's super important that you do that. We'll be talking a lot about this over coming months, but if you right now are like in a situation where you're like, my mom, my dad is really reluctant, nervous about this whole thing, we have not been through this, they're freaking out, that is okay. Let's start those conversations now. I can help with that. Like, you guys can come in together, come to this session together, and we'll really try to help them feel comfortable with the whole process. But it is still outrageously expensive, and financial aid is really, really important to get every little bit that you can. This is another great reason to do the FAFSA. The only requirement to this is being financially eligible, and the only way they know that is by completing the FAFSA. This has nothing to do with your GPA, your SAT scores, anything. This is a new scholarship that the state of Michigan created, and their intention is to kind of get money to more middle-class families as far as financial aid. So if you ever heard, or your parents may feel this way, this was my experience where we were not rich. My parents did not make a lot of money, but they made too much for me to get a lot of free money, scholarship money, or grants. They didn't used to look at it like we had financial need, but we did not have money to pay for it, right? I took out student loans, I worked, my parents took out a loan. This scholarship would have helped my family, and it will help a lot of families that you may not even expect it. So I really recommend doing the FAFSA, at least for this. Okay, so then scholarships are things that you would have to apply for on your end. So these things are nationwide search sites. They're open right now, year round. I would look at these in the order I have them listed. Going Merry is probably the most user-friendly. College Board, Big Future is attached. Actually, College Board is the company that does the SAT and does AP tests. So they're very knowledgeable on college stuff. But the way these work are similar to applications where you set up an account, you answer the information, they're gonna ask you about your extracurriculars, your interests, your family stuff, like, is anybody a veteran? This is the joke of, like, there's scholarships if you wear glasses, there's scholarships if you're left-handed. That's not necessarily true, but there's scholarships for more things than you would ever expect. So these sites, you put in all your information and they gather all of the scholarships that you might be eligible for, and they basically email those to you on a regular basis, I think basically weekly. And sometimes you have set up an application that it just kind of does things more automated. If that sounds like a lot of work, it's way, way easier than it was for my generation, your parents' generation, where we had to actually like write out paper applications before the internet. So this is a really, really easy way. You could do one of these, you could do all of these. You may find as you set up accounts for all of these that you're seeing a lot of the same stuff. So I would say doing like one or two of these is probably enough, but just wanted to include them just in case. Local scholarships will open up around Christmas time. SC4 tries to get their application up and ready before Christmas break so that people can work on it over that time off. But usually it's sometime before Christmas break, or it might be right around the first of the year. So SC4 has an application and a list of scholarships, and then the St. Clair County Community Foundation also has their own application. Those open up around the first of the year and are usually due by mid-March. We'll have the exact dates for that when you come to the success session in November. But these are the ones that are local, right? So there's not as many people that you're competing against, and so you would be more likely to win these scholarships. So you can go to those sites and kind of poke around. The things that are there right now are scholarship funds from this past year. So you won't be able to start the application, but you can go and start looking to see what kind of stuff is out there. And it's the same thing. You'll set up one account and do one application, and it will apply you to all of the scholarships that you would be eligible for based on your situation. But these are local ones where it might be like a family lost their mother who was a nurse. They set up a scholarship fund in her name. So it might just be for students that are going to nursing school. So you might not be eligible for every single thing, but they are more specific to interest and extracurriculars and things like that. So all of that to say, the other thing you have to do while also thinking about all of this stuff is really, really keeping your transcript as strong as you can make it. That is what you are showing. That's the evidence of what you can do. Right or wrong, that's what the colleges are looking at. That's what future employers are going to look at. It's evidence of your abilities and work ethic. So make it as strong as possible. You again have a big chunk of credits that you're going to be doing this year, about half of your degree. So you have a lot of opportunity to really bring your GPA up. If you can really keep everything above a C, that's sort of that first lowest benchmark. Well, actually, that's not the lowest. The lowest would be passing with a D- or higher. But a C makes it transferable. It counts towards degree requirements. Some people have already reached out like, I have a D, I need to withdraw. No, you have to just push harder and spend more time, right? And what I'm getting back and a lot of pushback is I'm working so many hours, I don't have time for that. I don't have time. I have to take one less class to lighten my load so that I'm not bringing all of my classes down. And I totally understand trying to balance that. Again, that's something I went through. All of us in the middle college were in this situation where we had to work while being in college. And it's a matter of, if I don't work, I'm not paying my rent, right? And so that might not be the case right now. Most of you are living at home, but as you go on, it will be. But look at every single class you're taking right now as at least a $2,000 scholarship. It would cost you about that much at a 4-year school. Some classes at SE4 cost $700 to $1,000 here at SE4. So it could mean costing $2,000 to $4,000 a class at a 4-year school. So if you don't get it done here, you're going to have to get it done when you get there, right? Where it's more expensive. So withdrawing or not doing well in these classes right now, there's probably not many jobs that any of you have that are going to be worth that amount of money. So I know that it's a hard thing. I know almost everywhere, whenever I talk to students, they're like, we're understaffed. My boss is texting me, somebody's sick. I got to go in. You have to really set those boundaries and think about, is it worth it? If it's coming at a cost where your grades are slipping, it isn't worth it. Right now, getting your GPA as high as it can is your number one priority. And that's the best way to make sure that you're eligible for more scholarship money. So rant over. If you need help balancing that, if you need help talking to an employer or kind of getting some talking points, I'm happy to help with that as well. But we do understand the balance is really hard to manage. Get help as soon as you need it. We've probably heard that 5,000 times. Look at your syllabus if you have a question, communicate with your instructor, all of those things we've been saying all along. This last thing is that you do have to do one last EDP, Educational Development Plan. So again, this is a form the state requires every student to update every single year. It's a Google form at this link. I will send this to you and I'll actually put it in the chat as well. This is the typical stuff we always ask you to enter, but also is asking a little bit about like, what colleges are you thinking about applying to? What are your concerns about the whole application process? And it's just for us to get a little bit more information so that we can help you in the next few months, get all this next step stuff done. So the link for that is a long Google Doc thing or whatever, but it'll bring you to that form. And then I'll also send it in the follow-up. I'll send a deadline, but you have a couple weeks to do this. But it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes, even taking your time and being pretty thoughtful about it. So you may want to just knock it out right now tonight. Another reminder on these dates: early alerts on September 30th. Registration opens November 4th. We'll be reminding you of that as it gets closer. But really, really make sure that you make time to attend one of the Paying for College sessions. Our next session, they'll be Friday, November 15th, in person in the room next to our office where you had or your seminar way back in the day, either in the morning from 10 to 11:30, in the afternoon 1 to 2:30, or a Zoom like you're on now on Tuesday, November 19th from 5:30 to 7. So again, really plan on being there. Let me know if you have questions, email me if you would like to set up a meeting. And that is all I have for you. I'll stick around for anybody that has questions.